this extremely tall figure, a political star with a gentle smile, once carried the reform dreams of hundreds of millions of Americans. He raised hope as his banner, and change as his trumpet. He became, in American history, the first African-American president. And just 9 months into his term, he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. Countless people hoped he could heal the divisions in American society and lead the U.S. toward a new unity. Yet when he left the White House in 2017, he left behind a more divided and polarized America than in 2008. Bipartisan confrontation reached its peak in decades. Racial rifts repeatedly tore through street violence. Movements like the Tea Party and Black Lives Matter swept across the nation, leaving the country in unrest. Congress was trapped in legislative deadlock. Social media became a battlefield for political confrontation. He promised to be a unifier beyond party lines, yet history proved him to be a key figure in the fragmentation of American society. The question is, how did this president, known for moral height and elegant speech, Barack Hussein Obama, end up sowing the seeds of social division beneath all his aura? And what exactly did he bring to America? 1960, Hawaii, USA. An 18-year-old white woman and Dunham met a black student from Kenya, Barack Hussein Obama. They were attracted to each other and quickly fell in love, giving birth to a baby boy the next year. The young couple never imagined that their union would unexpectedly give the child a natural political asset, helping him rise from an ordinary middle-class boy, step by step to the pinnacle of American power. The advantage of being biracial in a U.S. political scene that emphasizes identity and political correctness goes without saying. Also, note this: the Hussein in Obama's father's name is one of the most common names in the Islamic world. Although his parents separated when he was just 2, Obama grew up with his mother and grandmother following Christianity. Yet this innate label became an invisible political asset, arguably the best gift his father left him. As for Obama's mother, she was even more representative. A white American with English, German, and Swiss ancestry. Germany and Switzerland were the 2 largest ethnic groups in the U.S., surpassing English ancestry. With these 3 lineages, undoubtedly Obama gained an important advantage in his political path. Besides fate favoring him, Obama's rise in American politics also depended on his own efforts. Excellent in school and achieving top grades, he earned a law degree from Harvard University and taught at the University of Chicago for 12 years. This story of an ordinary person rising to elite status is what millions chase in the American dream. His lineage was extraordinary, his personal experience inspiring, and as a lawyer president, there had been 25 before him. If Obama hadn't gone into politics, it would have been a waste of talent. Even Hillary would have envied him. In fact, right after college, Obama had already begun community work for the Democratic Party. This marked the start of his political career. The key turning point was after entering Harvard Law School, where he became the first black president of the Harvard Law Review. In this position, Obama began to show exceptional coordination skills and political intelligence. This experience shaped his belief in change within the system, that elite rational dialogue and procedural justice can promote social progress. At the 2004 Democratic National Convention, Obama gave a speech called "Audacity of Hope" that captured the nation. His passionate oath declared that there is no liberal America and no conservative America, only a united United States of America. There is no black America, no white America, no Latino America or Asian America, only a united America. It was this speech that brought the little-known Obama into the spotlight. This declaration of reconciliation set the tone for his political career and planted the seeds of the gap between ideals and reality. On November 4, 2008, Chicago's Grant Park shone brilliantly at night. Countless people of different races were moved to tears as the slogan "Yes, we can" echoed through the sky. Obama won the election by an overwhelming margin, becoming the first African-American president in U.S. history. At that time, the U.S. was mired in the Iraq War and the financial crisis. The previous Bush administration had to pay the price. So the Republican defeat was expected. The eyes of the US and the world were all on the incoming Obama. So, how would Obama lead the US out of crisis? At the beginning of his term, Obama immediately began implementing one of his key campaign policies, the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, commonly known as Obamacare. But no one expected that this law would ignite partisan divisions. Initially, Obama's administration made major concessions to gain Republican support, including dropping the public option. But the Republicans ultimately gave 0 votes, showing no mercy. The Democrats, seeing this, were infuriated and simply used budget reconciliation to force it through. In short, if the Republicans refused to cooperate, the Democrats would make it work. Obama did. He campaigned promising to rise above party lines, but in reality, even basic procedural fairness was ignored. The anger of conservatives was quickly ignited, and the Tea Party movement spread nationwide, targeting the Obama administration for overreach, making opposition to Obamacare a banner for identity politics. According to the Pew Research Center, after the law passed, the gap in opinion between parties reached an astonishing 63 points, making it the most polarized issue in U.S. politics at the time. But the fire ignited by Obamacare was far from extinguished. Obama's savior legislation further widened the gap between the lower and upper classes. To address the shock from the financial crisis, Obama introduced the $787 billion American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, aimed in the short term at creating jobs and stimulating the economy. However, these benefits did not reach the Rust Belt or low and middle-income groups, but instead allowed Wall Street capitalists and tech giants in the Democratic stronghold to recover quickly. It's important to understand the wealth gap in U.S. society. During Obama's election victory, states like Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Ohio, previously Republican strongholds, shifted to Democratic support. The rednecks in the Rust Belt were drawn to Obama's middle-class background and believed in the change he promised. At that time, the U.S. was in its industrial capitalism stage, and these rednecks were middle-class families. They wanted to return to a time when one worker in the factory could afford a car and live in a suburban house. Many of them are today associated with the well-known name Mega. But that's a story for another time. American sociologist Robert Putnam, in his book Our Kids, The American Dream in Crisis, pointed out sharply that the Obama era was a key period for the solidification of class in America. The dream gap between social classes expanded to an unprecedented degree. In the bipartisan U.S. political system, it is difficult for any president's policies to gain full approval, and that's understandable. However, as a biracial president, did Obama achieve a social consensus on racial issues? The answer was still no. As the first African-American president, Obama was expected to become a symbol of racial reconciliation. Yet during his term, racial tensions erupted in even more complex and sharper forms. His own stance appeared heavily biased toward Black Americans. In 2009, Harvard professor Henry Louis Gates Jr., who was Black, was arrested by a white police officer outside his own home. Before learning the full details of the incident, Obama publicly stated that the police had acted stupidly. As soon as the words came out, he was drawn into a racial controversy. Obama was forced to hold the so-called Beer Summit to ease the tension. Coincidentally, in 2012, a Black high school student in Miami, Trayvon Martin, was shot and killed by a white neighborhood watch volunteer, George Zimmerman, simply because Zimmerman found his behavior suspicious. A dispute broke out between them, and the court eventually acquitted Zimmerman. When commenting on the case, Obama related it to his own Black identity, saying, "Trayvon Martin could have been me 35 years ago." Such remarks led many white Americans to believe the president was biased, intentionally stirring racial divisions. According to Gallup polls, by the end of Obama's presidency, the percentage of Americans who believed race relations were bad had surged to 42%, up from 22% when he took office. This shows that America's racial problem could not be easily changed. just because a biracial man became president. Even Obama himself admitted, "My election alone cannot usher America into a post-racial era." This buffed DEM president, whether in politics, economics, or racial matters, failed to achieve the integration people had expected, and instead deepened confrontation and division. According to Pew Research Center data, the proportion of party members who held very negative views of the opposing party rose from less than 20% when he took office to nearly 60% by the time he left. On social media, political discourse saw a 78% increase in extreme negative sentiment. Critics said Obama relied too heavily on elite rhetoric, failing to understand the anxiety of grassroots white Americans. They accused his identity politics strategy of winning minority intellectuals' favor, while alienating traditional working-class voters. In 2016, near the end of his presidency, Obama held his final White House Correspondents' Dinner. During the event, this president, famed for moral authority, once again displayed his sense of humor, joking about a Republican invitee who was absent. He joked that the man's absence might be because he was having dinner with Russian President Putin, or perhaps busy planning to turn the White House into one of his luxury hotels. The audience burst into laughter, yet Obama didn't expect that the very man he mocked would, just a few months later, defeat the much-favored Democratic candidate, Hillary Clinton, and become his successor. Yes, that Republican was Donald Trump.